I am making a Regenesis Red Dragon Archfiend deck profile just because one of my friends came up with the idea of playing Regenesis Red Dragon Archfiend, as you can do Red Dragon Archfiend shenanigans and then be able to do Regenesis combos afterwards. So I figured I'd go ahead and try it. So this is the prototype version of that deck. But I have yet to test it, but I do like some of the things I was able to come up with. Starting off with the monsters, I play 2 copies of Synchron Resonator. Synchron Resonators have free body once per turn while there's a Synchro monster on the field. And then if Synchron Resonator is sent to the graveyard for a Synchro summon, you can target one Resonator other than Synchron Resonator in your graveyard and return it to your hand. Next, I play 2 copies of Vision Resonator. Vision Resonator has the effect that while there's a level 5 or higher dark monster on the field, you can special summon this card from your hand once per turn. And then if the Vision Resonator is sent to the graveyard, then you can add a spell or trap card that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend from your deck to your hand, and you can only use each effect of Vision Resonator once per turn. Next, I play 1 copy of Red Resonator. Red Resonator has the effect that when it's special summoned, you can target one monster on the field that was special summoned, and gain life points equal to its attack points. Actually, I don't think Red Resonator targets. Just check, make sure. Okay, yeah, it does in fact target. And its other effect is if it's normal summoned, you can special summon a level 4 or lower monster from your hand, but this card usually isn't being normal summoned unless you already have a bad hand, so... And then next I play 1 copy of Crimson Resonator. Crimson Resonator has the effect that can be special summoned from your hand while you control no monsters. And then if Crimson Resonator is special summoned while the only other monster you control is a Dark Dragon Synchro monster, then you can special summon up to 2 more Resonators from your deck. I don't think you can summon more Crimson Resonators, though. Just to make sure. Yeah, you cannot summon Crimson Resonator with its effect. And then you can only use each effect of Crimson Resonator once per turn. And if you use any of the effects of Crimson Resonator, you cannot special summon from the extra deck except for Dark Dragon Synchros. Which, every monster in the extra deck is a Dark Dragon Synchro monster. And then next, I play 3 copies of Soul Resonator. Soul Resonator is the last Resonator monster that's played in this deck. As Soul Resonator has the effect of, if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add to your hand a level 4 or lower Fiend monster. Except for another copy of Soul Resonator, I believe. 4 lower Fiend monster to your hand, except for Soul Resonator. Yep. Just had to make sure that part was correct. If you use that effect, then you can't summon from the extra deck except for Dark Dragon Synchro monsters, which is fine. And then it has the Grave effect of while you control a Red Dragon Archfiend or a monster that mentions it, then if a card or cards on your field to be destroyed by battle or card effect, you banish card from your graveyard instead. And you can only use each effect of Soul Resonator once per turn. Next, I play 1 copy of Red Lotus King Flame Crime. Flame Crime has the effect that if you control a level 3 or lower Fiend Tuner monster, or I think it has to be level 3 or lower. Let's see, check real quick. You control Fiend Tuner. Nope. You control a Fiend Tuner or your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon it from your hand. And then you have the option of being able to inflict 400 points of damage to your opponent for each fire monster you control. But the effect you really want is its effect of if it's sent to the graveyard for a Synchro summon, you can send a normal trap from your deck to the graveyard. And then you can only use each effect of Red Lotus King Flame Crime once per turn. And the only reason I'm playing 1 Flame Crime is because it is searchable off of Soul Resonator. And Flame Crime is good to have, though, if your Soul Resonator gets negated. Next, I play 3 copies of Bone Archfiend. Bone Archfiend has the effect that you can special summon it from your hand or graveyard once per turn by discarding 1 card. And then Bone Archfiend also has the effect where you can target one monster on your field to then send a Resonator monster from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, you can increase or decrease that targeted monster's level by 1. Which usually would have a target either itself or Soul Resonator, decrease its level by 1 so you can make your copy of Red Rising Dragon. Now then, going into the Regenesis monsters, I play 1 copy of Regenesis Warrior. All of the Regenesis monsters, with an exception to Archfiend and Lord, share the effect that if you control a monster that has 2,500 original attack or defense, you can special summon from your hand for free. And then all of them except for Lord also share the effect that during your opponent's end phase, if this card's in the graveyard because it was sent there that turn, you can return it to your hand. And that is a mandatory effect, so if you can do it, you have to. And after that, they all have their own unique effects, where Warrior is a quick effect to be able to attribute itself, target monster your opponent controls, and return it to the hand. Next, I play 3 copies of Regenesis Sage. Sage has the effect that your opponent activates a card or effect. You can send 1 Regenesis card from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard to negate that card, and if you do, destroy it. Next, I play 1 copy of Regenesis Dragon. Regenesis Dragon has the effect that you can tribute it for a quick effect to target a spell trap card your opponent controls and banish it. And then next, I play 3 copies of Regenesis Archfiend. Archfiend is the main starter for the Regenesis combo if you do not have a way to get to Red Dragon Archfiend, where Archfiend has the effect that you can reveal a monster in your hand that has 2,500 attack or defense. No, Hera, you're not needed for this video. But you can reveal a monster that has an original attack or defense of 2,500 to then be able to special summon this card. And then when this card is normal or special summoned once per turn, you can add 1 Regenesis card from your deck to your hand. One thing I was doing when I played the Regenesis, I believe it was Blue Eyes Regenesis, at my locals recently, I found out that you do not want to add Regenesis off of Archfiend if you don't have to, because that's a good way of falling into a droll, which can actually hurt you quite a bit. And then lastly, for the Regenesis monsters, I am trying 2 copies of Regenesis Lord. Though I'll probably end up cutting it Regenesis Lord down to 1, just because Lord doesn't seem that good without proper setup. Where Regenesis Lord has the effect that when you cannot normal summon or set it, it has to be special summoned from your hand by banishing a Regenesis monster. By banishing a monster that's original attack and defense has 2,500. So in this case, a Regenesis monster. When it is summoned, you can set a Regenesis spell trap from your deck, and then during the battle phase only, Regenesis Lord gains 2,500 attack, and Regenesis Lord does piercing if it attacks a monster in defense mode. And then lastly, for the monsters, I play 3 copies of Molcharmi Fualos. Fualos just has the effect that if you control no cards, you can discard it to then be able to make it so that every time your opponent special summons from the extra deck or main deck, you get to draw a card. You can only use 2 Molcharmi effects per turn, and then during your opponent's end phase, if you have more cards in your hand than the cards your opponent controls plus 6, you randomly shuffle the difference from your hand back into the deck. So the opponent ends their turn, and they have 8 cards in play, and you have more than 14 cards in your hand. You randomly shuffle cards from your hand back into the deck until you have 14 cards. This only came up once when I was playing Blue Eyes Regenesis, where my opponent made me shuffle back the second copy of Sage with Eyes of Blue, and then I ended up drawing Sage with Eyes of Blue for turns, so... And then I proceeded to then OTK them through their Mitsurugi Raizel board because they've just decided to just let me draw a crap ton. And then moving on to the spells, I play 1 copy of Scarlet Security. This card is a Harpy's Feather Duster while you control a Red Dragon Archfiend. The fun part of this card is that since it does mention Red Dragon Archfiend, one of the cards I'll get to later actually lets you add it from deck or graveyard to your hand. And then next I play 1 copy of Soul Fist. I actually really like Soul Fist in this deck, as it can only be equipped to a Dragon Synchro monster, which 9 times out of 10, I will equip it to Red Dragon Archfiend, just so you get the most effect out of it. But Red Dragon Archfiend, you control that as equipped with this card, becomes unaffected by your opponent's card effects. I forget the rest of the effect. It's worded specifically. And then once per turn during your main phase, you can make the attack of all monsters your opponent currently controls become equal to the equipped monsters. And then once per turn, when an attack is declared involving the equipped monster, you can target one monster in your opponent's graveyard, banish it, and if you do, the equipped monster gains attack equal to that banished monster's attack till the end of this turn. So usually what I'll do with this is I will equip it to a Scarlet Red Dragon Archfiend, so that you can then use this card's effect to make all your opponent's monsters attack become 3,000. And then that way when you use Scarlet's effect, it destroys all your opponent's special summoned monsters, as well as your own that fall under 3,000, that have 3,000 or more. Or 3,000 or less, I mean. And then inflict 800 points of damage for each one destroyed. Or you can just use its effect to banish something your opponent needs in their graveyard, and then have Scarlet gain that monster's attack. I just like it as a 1-up since it is extremely searchable off of the next card. So I believe it's, okay, yeah, the next card or Vision Resonator. Which, next I play 3 copies of Crimson Gaia. Crimson Gaia has the effect that once per turn, you can add a card, you can add a card that mentions Red Dragon Archfiend or is Red Dragon Archfiend from your graveyard or deck to your hand. And then, after that, it has another effect where if your Red Dragon Archfiend monster attacks an opponent's monster, you can change all monsters your opponent controls to defense position. And its last effect is if a card or cards on field are destroyed, that you can special summon a Red Dragon Archfiend from your graveyard. Next, I play 3 copies of Resonator Call. Resonator Call has the effect that once per turn you can add a Resonator monster from your deck to your hand. That's about it. And then next, I play 3 copies of Regenesis Code. Regenesis Code I hardly ever actually activate on my turn. Usually if I'm activating on my turn, it's because I can't do Red Dragon Archfiend things. Usually I'll activate this on my opponent's turn, where you can activate it to then special summon a Regenesis monster from deck. However, that monster is sent to the graveyard at the end phase of your opponent's turn. Or during the end phase of your opponent's next turn, I should say, which in that case would be their turn. However, after its resolution, you are not allowed to summon from the extra deck until the end of the next turn. So usually what I would do is use this on the opponent's turn after I've already made a board. Or if I can't do Red Dragon Archfiend things, I will use it on my turn so that on my next turn I'll be able to summon from the extra deck if I need to. And then Regenesis Code also has the graveyard effect of you can banish this card from your graveyard, target, I believe, a Regenesis monster that is in your grave, and special summon it. See if this card is in your graveyard, except the turn with something, you banish a target when you're banished. Okay, my bad, it actually targets a banished Regenesis monster to summon it to your field. So it can summon back a Regenesis monster that you banished to summon Regenesis Lord. And then next, I play 3 copies of Regenesis. One thing I forgot to mention about Code is that you can only activate each effect once per turn. And the grave effect can only be used on a turn other than the turn it was sent to the graveyard. And then Regenesis just lets you add a Regenesis monster from your deck to your hand. Now, if you, however, since this deck doesn't have any non-Regenesis monsters that have 2,500 attack or defense, they can't really make use of its conditional search effect, where if you control a Regenesis monster, you can add any monster that's 2,500 attack and defense. And then the last effect is that while this card's in your graveyard, except the turn it was sent there, you can banish this card from your graveyard to then be able to special summon a Regenesis monster from your graveyard. And then for the traps, I only play 3. I play 1 copy of Red Rain, 1 Red Zone, and 1 Regenesis Birth. Regenesis Birth has 2 effects. You can only use 1 of the 2 per turn, and only once that turn, where you can target, discard a card. I think it's a card. Nope, you can send a Regenesis monster from your deck to the graveyard to then be able to target 1 monster your opponent controls and flip it face down. Or during your opponent's turn, you can send this card you control to the graveyard to then be able to special summon as many different Regenesis monsters as possible from your hand, graveyard, and banish. with this deck, I usually only ever use the first effect, as I only use the second effect if I need to make sure I live the turn. And then Red Zone has the effect that once per turn, you can target a banished Dark Dragon Synchro you control and special summon it. And then if you control a Red Dragon Archfiend while your opponent, or a monster that mentions it, while your opponent activates a card or effect, you can activate Red Zone's effect, target one card on the field, and destroy it. The first effect of Red Zone is meant to be used with Red Supernova Dragon, as you can banish it with its own effect, and then you can use Red Zone to bring it right back. And then Red Rain has the effect that if you Synchro Summon while this card is in your graveyard, you can add it back to your hand. And then you can activate it, target to banish all monsters on the field except the monster or monsters with the highest level. So if you have a level 12 and there aren't any other level 12 monsters in play, all other monsters are banished, and then the monsters that remain after its effect are unaffected by other card effects. And you can only use each effect of Red Rain once per turn. So usually, though, when I have Red Rain, it's because I have a level 10 Dark Dragon Synchro. Or I have one or two of those, so as long as my opponent doesn't summon anything that's level 10 or higher, Red Rain can be used to then get rid of that card or cards. Moving on to the extra deck, I play 3 copies of Red Rising Dragon. Red Rising Dragon has the effect that if this card is Synchro Summoned, you can target, or Synchro Summoned, if this card is Special Summoned, I can't remember if it's Synchro Summoned or Special Summoned. Okay, if it's Synchro Summoned, you can target a Resonator in your graveyard and Special Summon it, which usually this will target Red Resonator to increase your life points by 2100, or by however much of a Special Summon monster you can target is. But then it also has the Grave effect. You can banish this card from your graveyard to Special Summon 2 level 1 tuner monsters from your graveyard. Which, in the way I have this deck built, it would be the 2 copies of Synchron Resonator, which are easy to get to. But if in a more pure variant, then that would also include cards like Effect Veiler. And then you can only use the banish effect of Red Rising Dragon once per turn. So where if you can Synchro Summon this card multiple times, you can use a Revival effect multiple times, which I actually found out, which I think is actually kind of funny. And then next I play 1 copy Quibelt the Blade Dragon. Quibelt the Blade Dragon has the effect that when it's Synchro Summoned, you can target 1 card your opponent controls and destroy it. And then, if this card is sent to the graveyard, if I remember that effect correctly, if let's go on the field is destroyed, you can target 1 face-up monster on the field. That monster cannot attack until your opponent's end phase. But usually this is just in here because sometimes there are situations where you can't make a level 6 or 7 or 8 synchro, but making a 7 will actually be able to help. So Quibelt being a dark level 7 Dark Dragon synchro actually does matter. And Quibelt is the best option out of, I believe there's 3? It's 2 or 3. And then I play 1 copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend. Hot Red Dragon Archfiend just has the effect that once per turn you can activate its effect to destroy all other attack position monsters on the field. And then only Hot Red Dragon Archfiend is allowed to attack after you use that effect. Then I play 1 copy of Scarred Dragon Archfiend. Scarred Dragon Archfiend has the effect that if this card is sent to the graveyard, first of all, its name becomes Red Dragon Archfiend while on the field or in the graveyard. And then if it's sent to the graveyard, you can activate its effect to special summon a Red Dragon Archfiend from your extra deck. And if this card was sent to the graveyard as Synchro material, you can then destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. And you can only use each effect of Scarred Dragon Archfiend once per turn. And because the Scarred Dragon Archfiend requires you to play Red Dragon Archfiend, I do play 1 copy of it. Which Red Dragon Archfiend has the effect that if it attacks a monster in defense position, then at the start of the damage step, it destroys all defense monsters your opponent controls, which is why Crimson Gaia has the effect it does switch everything to defense. And then during the end phase, if you have any monsters on the field that didn't attack, then they are destroyed. Then next, I play 3 copies of Scarlight Red Dragon Archfiend. Scarlight has the effect that once per turn you can activate its effect, so that you can destroy all special summon monsters on the field that have attack less than or equal to its own. And then you inflict 800 points of damage for each monster that was destroyed, or I believe it was 800. Just going to check real quick. Okay, you inflict 500 to your opponent for each one that was destroyed. I don't know why I always think it's 800. And then Scarlight also has the effect that its name becomes Red Dragon Archfiend while it's on the field or in the graveyard. Then next I play one copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. Abyss has the effect that once per turn, it's a quick effect. It can target one card on the field and negates effects. And then if Bane inflicts battle damage, it can special summon a tuner monster from your graveyard. Which, most of the time, again, would be Red Resonator to increase your life points by 3,200. And then next, I play one copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane. Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane has the effect that once per turn, you contribute one monster you control to then special summon a Red Dragon Archfiend monster from your graveyard. And then if Bane deals damage to your opponent, you can special summon two tuner monsters, one from your deck and one from your graveyard that have the same level. And you can only use each effect of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Bane once per turn. Abyss is the exact same way. And then next I play one copy of Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend. Tyrant Red Dragon Archfiend, I find, at least for me, is one of the harder ones to make. Just because it requires two tuner monsters and then one non-tuner monster, but realistically it's not that hard to make, it's just situational when you want to make it. But it has the effect that once per turn, you can activate its effect to destroy all other cards on the field, which having the Soul Resonator in your graveyard can actually protect your field from its effect, as long as you draw a Red Dragon Archfiend or a monster that mentions it. And then it also has the effect that during the battle phase, if your opponent activates a trap card or the effect of a trap card, you can negate that card, and if you do, it gains 500 attack permanently. Though that effect, I don't think I've ever used that effect ever since the card was released, just because it nukes the board, and most people don't use trap cards that have effects all in their graveyard. And then next, I play one copy of the Bestial Dissipator. Dissipator has two effects, where its first effect lets you target a light or dark monster that is banished, and you can then special summon it to your field, which I like using it in this deck to summon back your banished Red Dragon Archfiend monsters. And then it has another effect where if your opponent activates a monster effect, you can target a banished card, shuffle it into the owner's deck, and then apply one of two effects depending on whose deck it got shuffled into. If the card got shuffled back into your deck, you destroy that monster. Or if it returned to your opponent's deck, you then negate that monster's effects. One thing I will say now is that my side deck does include a Bestial engine. So that if Regenesis turns out to not be very good in a matchup, I can just smokescreen it into Bestial Red Dragon Archfiend. And then lastly, for the extra deck, I play one copy of Red Supernova Dragon. Red Supernova Dragon has the effect that it gains 500 attack for each tuner monster in your graveyard. And then if your opponent activates a monster effect or declares an attack, you can activate Red Supernova's effect, banishing itself and all cards your opponent controls. And then during your next end phase after that effect was used, it returns to the field. And if I remember correctly, Red Supernova Dragon also can't be destroyed by card effects. Let's see. Cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. And then that is it for my Regenesis Red Dragon Archfiend deck profile. If you have any ideas what I can do to improve the deck, any ideas for decks like to see made in the future, or decks like to see face each other, feel free to comment down below. I always read the comments, and I always at least try some of the comments. And just thank you for watching.